Hopefully this won't give as much feedback as it did this last time. Hi, my novel is Quest of the Warrior Maiden, and it is an epic historic fantasy set in the time of Charlemagne. So in the spirit of demonstrating the delicate balance between following the constraints of historical fiction regarding accurate historical detail, as well as using magic in fantasy, I'm reading a passage where an enchantress named Melissa has sent my heroine, Bradamant, who's the Warrior Maiden, on a mission to rescue her beloved, Rogero, who is being held prisoner by the wizard Atala. Bradamant brought her horse to a canter as she entered the Grasigne forest. She was somewhat familiar with the woods because she had joined her father and brothers on hunting expeditions there. The forest was east of Montauban and filled with deer, wild boar, foxes, hare, and other game. However, she generally avoided traveling within its boundaries because it was easy to get lost within the 4,000 hectares laced with scores of crisscrossing trails. She held her shield tightly as she left the bright sunlight and rode into the darkened forest. The woods were alive with the sound of songbirds, crickets, squirrels, and chipmunks. The shadows of trees danced on the dirt path as filtered sunlight streamed through the canopy. She was unsure where she would find Rogero, but trusted she would find a sign to show her the way. An immense oak tree loomed in front of her. The tree stretched to the sky and looked old enough to have been growing since the time of Christ. Its trunk was at least 6 feet across, and its mighty limbs were gnarled like an old man stricken by a lifetime of hard labor. A flash of white caught Bradamant's eye as a dove took flight from that oak and briefly landed on a neighboring cherry tree. Intrigued, she led her horse away from the trail and followed the bird as it made its way from tree to tree deeper into the wood. As a silence fell over the forest, Bradamant's senses were heightened. Something was about to happen. Drawing her sword, she sniffed the air and caught a whiff of a foul smell like rotting meat. Closing her eyes, she concentrated on listening for signs of trouble. Soon, she heard heavy footsteps, followed by a crash. Bradamant urged her horse through the dense underbrush in the direction of the sounds and came upon a gruesome 10-foot giant toppling trees as he ran. Pursuing him, she came upon another giant with large gashes on his thighs and blood coursing down his legs. The wounded giant gave a fearsome snarl at a man, Rogero, whose sword seemed to have caused the injuries. Her stomach clenched. This was the scene Melissa had warned her about. The man looked like Rogero. How could she be certain this was all an illusion? With a backhanded swing, one of the monsters sent Rogero flying through the air. His back hit a large chestnut tree, and he slumped over. A giant picked up the unconscious Rogero by one foot and dangled him upside down. The other one grabbed the warrior's wrist and pulled. Bradamant gritted her teeth as she rode toward the two monsters, targeting the wounded one. She intended on severing his hand with her sword before they killed Rogero by a crude drawing and quartering. As her sword connected with the giant's forearm, the earth seemed to melt under her feet. Her horse Nikiforos reared on his hind legs, and Bradamant reined him in. They were suddenly no longer in the forest, but instead inside a stone building. She dismounted, and the horse galloped away from her. "Bradamant, where are you?" came Rogero's faraway voice. She stood in a spacious room in an elaborately furnished castle. Ornate tapestries of knights in battle and paintings of nobility adorned each wall, with multiple staircases leading to various wings of the castle. With sword and shield in hand, she began her search. She went through numerous bedrooms, private chambers, kitchens, and dozens of other lavishly appointed rooms that were magically illuminated without lamp, torch, or candle. Eventually, she was back in the main hall where she started. Ruggiero's voice had called to her many times, but never once had she caught a glimpse of him. She collapsed into a chair and wept. She was Atala's prisoner, and there was no door or window to the outside world. Bradamant feared she might never escape this enchanted castle or find her beloved.